I am Natalie, 32 years old, and I still cannot believe what happened at my brother Jason's engagement party last month. The moment my father proudly announced he was gifting my apartment to the happy couple, my world shattered. The same apartment I had poured $50,000 into renovating. Dad casually told me, "You need to move out," like he was asking me to pass the salt. Then came Jason's text. "Move out immediately. You have 2 days." That was when I decided to quietly hire a crew and give them all a surprise they never expected. If you are watching this right now, let me know where you are from in the comments below. Do not forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself when family tries to walk all over you. 3 years ago, I purchased my apartment after saving every penny I could from my marketing job. It was not easy. I worked overtime, took freelance projects on weekends, and skipped vacations for 2 years straight. When I finally had enough for a down payment, I felt like I had conquered Mount Everest. The apartment was not fancy, a modest 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown. But it was mine. My relationship with my family has always been complicated, especially with my younger brother Jason. He is 29 now, 3 years younger than me, but you would think he was the firstborn the way our parents treat him. From childhood, the pattern was clear. Jason got the newest toys while I got hand-me-downs. Jason got to attend basketball camp while I stayed home, because we could only afford to send one kid. Jason got a car for his 16th birthday while I took the bus, until I could save up for my own vehicle at 19. Our parents, Thomas and Diane, never tried to hide their favoritism. Dad would proudly display Jason's average report cards on the refrigerator while my straight A's were met with. "That is what we expect from you." Mom would reschedule family events if they conflicted with Jason's social plans, but never for mine. The message was always clear. Jason was the golden child, and I was just there. Despite this, I worked hard to build my own life. After college, I landed a job at a digital marketing agency and slowly climbed the corporate ladder. By 29, I had saved enough for a down payment on my apartment. I remember the day I signed the papers, my hands shaking with excitement. My parents attended the closing, but seemed underwhelmed. Dad asked why I had not waited to find something in a better area, and Mom wondered aloud if I had made a hasty decision. Jason did not even bother to come. Once I had my keys, I poured my heart and soul into making that apartment my sanctuary. The kitchen had outdated appliances and worn countertops, so I invested $12,000 in new stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, and a beautiful tiled backsplash. The bathroom needed a complete overhaul that cost another $11,000. I replaced the old carpet with hardwood flooring for $15,000, installed custom lighting throughout for $5,000, and spent the remaining $7,000 on paint fixtures and smart home technology. Every weekend for 6 months, I was either doing renovations myself or supervising contractors. My hands were perpetually stained with paint or caulk. I learned to use power tools and discovered I had a knack for design. Each improvement made the apartment feel more like home, a physical manifestation of my independence and hard work. When the renovations were complete, I hosted a small housewarming party. My parents came and even Jason showed up briefly. Dad walked through the apartment with a critical eye, pointing out flaws in the workmanship that only he could see. Mom commented that the color scheme was a bit much for her taste. Jason barely looked around before planting himself on my new couch and asking if I had any beer. Despite their lukewarm reaction, I was proud. This space was mine, created with my vision, my money, and my sweat. Friends and coworkers complimented the transformation, some even asking for design advice for their own homes. The apartment became my haven, the place where I could truly be myself. I maintained contact with my family despite our complicated relationship. Sunday dinners at their house once a month, holiday gatherings, occasional family outings. I made efforts because despite everything, they were still my family. I even gave them a spare key to my apartment in case of emergencies, a decision I would come to regret deeply. "You never know when you might need help," Mom had said when she asked for a key. "What if you lock yourself out or need someone to water your plants when you are away?" It seemed reasonable at the time. I trusted them with access to my home because I never imagined they would betray that trust so completely. My relationship with Jason remained distant but cordial. He would occasionally text to ask how I was doing or to share news about his life. When he started dating Melissa 2 years ago, I made an effort to get to know her. She seemed nice enough if a bit entitled. She came from a wealthy family and had certain expectations about lifestyle that I noticed Jason struggling to meet. I saw how he began to wear more expensive clothes traded in his car for a fancier model and talked about neighborhoods where they might live someday that were well beyond his budget as an accountant. I should have seen the signs. The way he looked around my renovated apartment with new interest when he visited. The questions about property values in my building. The comments about how Melissa would love my kitchen design. But I was blind to it, still hoping that someday we might develop the sibling relationship I had always wanted. The invitation to Jason and Melissa's engagement party arrived in my mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon. Embossed silver lettering on heavy cream cardstock announced the celebration would be held at Melissa's parents' country club in 3 weeks. I texted Jason my congratulations and began thinking about what to wear and what gift to buy. The day of the engagement party arrived with perfect weather, warm sunshine, and clear blue skies. I dressed carefully in a navy blue cocktail dress, applied subtle makeup, and drove to the country club. The ballroom was decorated with thousands of dollars worth of flowers, twinkling lights, and elegant table settings. About 100 guests mingled, sipping champagne and sampling hors d'oeuvres carried by uniformed servers. I spotted my parents near the front of the room, my mother in an expensive new dress and my father in a tailored suit. They greeted me with quick hugs before turning back to their conversation with Melissa's parents. I wandered through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with relatives and meeting Melissa's friends and family. Jason and Melissa made their grand entrance about an hour into the party. She looked radiant in a designer dress, her diamond engagement ring catching the light as she waved to guests. Jason beamed beside her, looking happier than I had seen him in years. I felt a genuine surge of joy for my brother despite our complicated relationship. After dinner was served and dessert plates cleared away, my father stood and tapped his glass for attention. The room quieted as he began his speech, praising Jason's accomplishments and welcoming Melissa to the family. He spoke about the importance of family support and how excited he and Mom were about this new chapter in Jason's life. And to show our support, Dad continued, his voice ringing through the ballroom, "Your mother and I want to give you both a special gift to start your married life together." He paused dramatically. "We are giving you Natalie's apartment as your first home." The room erupted in applause. I sat frozen, certain I had misheard. My apartment, the one I had bought with my own money, the one I had poured $50,000 and countless hours into renovating. "It is in a great location," Dad continued, "and already beautifully renovated. You can move in right after the wedding." My chest tightened as I struggled to breathe. Around me, guests murmured appreciatively about my parents' generosity. Melissa clapped her hands in delight, while Jason smirked in my direction. Not once did anyone acknowledge that this gift was actually my property, not my parents'. When the speech ended and conversation resumed, I made my way through the crowd toward my parents, my legs shaking with each step. "What was that about?" I asked quietly when I reached them, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, Natalie is not it wonderful," Mom said. "Jason and Melissa need a place to start their married life, and your apartment is perfect." "But it is my apartment," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I bought it with my money. I renovated it with my savings." Dad frowned. "Do not make a scene," he said sternly. "We can discuss this later." "Discuss what?" "How you just gave away my home without even talking to me first." "You need to move out," Dad announced casually, as if he were commenting on the weather. "Jason and Melissa will need time to settle in before the wedding." I stared at him in disbelief. "You cannot be serious. You cannot give away something that does not belong to you." "We thought you would be happy to help your brother," Mom said, looking around nervously to see if anyone was watching our exchange. "You have a good job. You can find another place." I felt like I had stepped into some alternate reality where nothing made sense. How could they possibly think this was acceptable? How could they believe they had the right to give away my property? The remainder of the party passed in a blur. I maintained my composure, somehow smiling mechanically when introduced to Melissa's relatives, picking at the elaborate cake during toasts, and even managing to congratulate the happy couple before slipping out early. As soon as I reached my car, the tears I had been holding back all evening spilled over. I sat in the parking lot for nearly 30 minutes trying to process what had happened. How could my own parents do this to me? How could they so casually dismiss my hard work, my investment, my home? When the guests had departed and only family remained, I confronted my parents again, this time with Jason and Melissa present. "I need to understand what is happening here," I said firmly. "That apartment is in my name. I paid for it. You have no legal right to give it away." "We thought you would want to help your brother start his married life," Mom repeated. "By becoming homeless myself. By giving up everything I have worked for." "Do not be so dramatic," Dad scoffed. "You make good money. You can rent until you find another place." "Jason needs it more than you do," Mom added. "He is starting a family." "He is not even married yet," I exclaimed. "And even if he were, that would not entitle him to my property." Jason put his arm around Melissa. "We have already told our friends we will be living there. Melissa has ideas for redecorating already." "Redecorating? I just spent $50,000 renovating that apartment." "And it looks lovely," Melissa said with a dismissive wave. "But I will need to make it our own, you understand." I looked from one face to another, searching for any sign of understanding, any acknowledgement of how wrong this was. There was none. "This is not happening," I said finally. "I am not giving up my apartment. Period." My father's face hardened. "You have always been selfish, Natalie. Always thinking only of yourself. This is about family." "Family does not steal from each other," I responded, my voice shaking. As I drove home that night, my phone buzzed with a text message from Jason. "Move out immediately. You have 2 days." I barely remember the drive back to my apartment after receiving Jason's text. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, and tears blurred my vision several times, forcing me to pull over until I could see clearly again. When I finally reached my building, I sat in the parking garage for nearly an hour, alternating between sobbing and staring blankly at the concrete wall in front of me. This could not be happening. There had to be some mistake, some misunderstanding that could be cleared up with a rational conversation. But deep down, I knew better. The look in my father's eyes, the entitlement in Jason's voice, my mother's dismissal of my concerns, these were not signs of a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate act of betrayal by the people who should have protected me. When I finally made it up to my apartment, I walked through each room, slowly touching the countertops I had selected, so carefully running my fingers along the hardwood floors I had installed, adjusting the custom light fixtures I had chosen to create the perfect ambiance. Every corner of this space represented my hard work, my dreams, my independence. And now my family wanted to take it all away with no consideration for what it meant to me. The shock began to give way to anger, a slow burning fury that built with each passing moment. Who did they think they were? What gave them the right to dispose of my property as if I were a child and they were the adults making decisions for my own good? I was 32 years old, a successful professional who had earned everything I owned through my own efforts. I pulled out the folder containing all the documents related to my apartment purchase. The mortgage was in my name alone. The deed listed me as the sole owner. My parents had no legal right to give my apartment to anyone. I began researching property laws in our state, confirming what I already knew: no one could force me to surrender my home. After several attempts to call my parents went straight to voicemail, I sent a carefully worded text message. "I need to speak with you both about what happened tonight. The apartment is legally mine. You cannot give it away without my consent, which I do not give. Please call me so we can discuss this rationally." No response came. Not that night, not the next morning. By noon the following day, I was equal parts worried and furious. I tried calling again, only to discover they had blocked my number. An email received no response either. They were simply ignoring me, as if by refusing to engage, they could make me surrender to their demands. I called my best friend Ashley in tears. They just announced it at the party, Ash. Like it was their apartment to give away. Like I do not even matter. That is absolutely insane, Ashley responded, her voice tight with anger on my behalf. They cannot do that. It is your apartment. Your name on the deed. Jason texted me saying, I have 2 days to move out. 2 days? Where am I supposed to go? What about all my things? You are not going anywhere, Ashley said firmly. This is your home. They have no right to kick you out legally or morally. But what do? They will not even talk to me. You stand your ground. You do not leave. And if necessary, you get legal help. After talking with Ashley, I felt slightly calmer, more resolved. I would not be bullied out of my own home. I would not allow my family to steamroll over my rights simply because they had always prioritized Jason's needs above mine. That resolve was tested when more texts arrived from Jason throughout the day. We need you out by Friday. Melissa wants to start measuring for new furniture. Make sure you leave the place clean. Melissa has allergies. Dad says if you are not out by Friday, he will come help you pack. Each message increased my determination not to give in to their outrageous demands. This was not just about an apartment anymore. It was about standing up for myself after a lifetime of being pushed aside for Jason's benefit. That evening, I encountered my neighbor Susan in the hallway. She looked at me with surprise. Oh, Natalie, I thought you might have already moved out. Your brother was telling everyone yesterday that he and his fiancée are moving in this weekend. He introduced himself to several of us when he was here measuring the windows. My stomach dropped. He was in my apartment measuring windows. Susan nodded. Yesterday afternoon. He had a key. I assumed you knew. The violation of my privacy sent a fresh wave of anger through me. They had used the spare key I had given them for emergencies to enter my home without permission to plan their takeover while I was at work. The betrayal cut deep. I thanked Susan and went inside, immediately changing my locks. The locksmith gave me curious looks as I explained the situation, but completed the work without comment, handing me the new keys with a sympathetic nod. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced through every possible scenario, every potential approach to resolving this nightmare. By morning, I had made my decision. I would not move out. I would not give in. And I would not simply wait for the next move in this twisted game my family was playing. It was time to take action. If they wanted to play hardball, they would discover I was no longer the compliant daughter willing to sacrifice her own needs for family harmony. They had pushed me too far, and now they would face the consequences of their actions. The morning after changing my locks, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. This situation required my full attention, and I could not focus on marketing strategies while my home was under threat. My boss was understanding, telling me to take the time I needed. If only my family could show the same consideration. My first step was to contact a lawyer. I searched for attorneys specializing in property law and family disputes, finding Michael Reynolds, who had excellent reviews and could see me that same day. His office was downtown in a sleek high-rise, his manner professional but compassionate as I explained my bizarre situation. Let me get this straight, Michael said, leaning forward in his chair. Your parents publicly gifted your apartment to your brother at his engagement party. Despite having no legal ownership of the property, yes, I confirmed. The apartment is solely in my name. I purchased it 3 years ago with my own money, renovated it with my savings, and have made every mortgage payment myself. And now they expect you to vacate within 2 days. That is what my brother's text said. Michael shook his head, clearly baffled by the audacity. Well, I can tell you unequivocally that they have no legal ground to stand on. They cannot give away property they do not own, and they cannot evict you from your own home. Relief washed over me at his confirmation, though I had already known this to be true. What should I do? I asked. They will not respond to my calls or messages. My brother is telling neighbors he is moving in this weekend. Document everything Michael advised. Every text, every email, every conversation with neighbors. Change your locks, if you have not already done so. I did that last night. Good. Next, I recommend sending a formal cease and desist letter. I can draft that for you today. It will clearly state that the property is yours, that you have not authorized any transfer of ownership, and that any attempts to enter without permission will be considered trespassing. We spent the next hour going over details with Michael, taking copious notes. He asked to see my deed mortgage documents and proof of the renovations I had made. I had brought everything with me organized in a folder, which seemed to impress him. Most clients are not this prepared, he commented. It makes my job easier. By the time I left his office, I felt more in control. The cease and desist letter would be delivered to my parents and Jason by courier the next day. Michael had also advised me on next steps if they persisted, including potential restraining orders and legal action for harassment. But while the legal aspects were now in motion, I had another plan forming. A plan that would send a crystal clear message while remaining completely within my rights. At home, I created a detailed inventory of everything I had added to the apartment during the renovations. 1. Kitchen. Stainless steel refrigerator, gas range, dishwasher, microwave, quartz countertops, custom cabinets, tile backsplash. 2. Bathroom, walk-in shower with glass doors, double vanity, heated tile flooring, new toilet, custom mirrors. 3. Living areas, hardwood flooring throughout, recessed lighting, ceiling fans, built-in bookshelves. 4. Miscellaneous smart home system, new interior doors, custom window treatments. Next to each item, I noted the approximate cost and whether it was an improvement to the original apartment or an addition I had made. Anything that was an addition rather than a permanent improvement could legally be removed. The original apartment had been a blank slate with builder-grade finishes. Almost everything of value had been added by me. I also took extensive photos of every room documenting the current state of the apartment. These would serve both as evidence of the improvements I had made and as a record of the condition before what I was planning. Next came the most crucial part of my plan, finding the right contractors. I needed professionals who could quickly and efficiently remove all the upgrades I had installed without damaging the structural elements of the apartment. After several calls and meetings, I found Brian and his team at Elite Home Services. So, you want us to essentially reverse the renovations? Brian asked during our consultation, looking somewhat confused. Exactly, I confirmed. I need to remove all the additions and upgrades I installed, returning the apartment to its original basic condition. May I ask why? These renovations are beautiful. That kitchen alone must have cost $12,000, I supplied. And the reason is complicated, but essentially my family is trying to take my apartment for my brother, and I want to make it clear that what is mine stays with me. Brian nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. So you want to take out everything you paid for before they can get their hands on it? Precisely. After walking through the apartment, Brian provided an estimate for the work and a timeline: 2 days with a crew of 5 people. It would cost nearly $4,000, a significant expense, but worth every penny for the message it would send. We can save most of the materials, Brian explained. The hardwood flooring, kitchen cabinets, appliances, bathroom fixtures, they can all be carefully removed and stored. You could reuse them in a new place or sell them to recoup some costs. I agreed to his proposal, scheduling the work for Thursday and Friday, the exact days Jason had demanded I vacate the apartment. Brian assured me his team would be discreet and professional, understanding the sensitive nature of the situation. With the contractor secured, I needed storage for all the items that would be removed. A quick search led me to a climate-controlled storage facility nearby where I rented a large unit for 3 months. It was another expense, but a necessary one. I also reached out to a few trusted neighbors, including Susan across the hall and elderly Mr. Peterson next door, explaining in broad terms what would be happening. There will be contractors here for the next 2 days removing some items from my apartment. It might be noisy during business hours, but they will respect the building's quiet times. Is everything okay, dear? Mr. Peterson asked, concern evident in his weathered face. It will be, I assured him. I am just dealing with a family situation. That brother of yours, he asked shrewdly, never did like the look of him when he came around. I smiled at his perception. Yes, related to that. But please do not worry, everything is being handled legally and properly. With all the pieces in place, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For perhaps the first time in my life, I was not just accepting my family's poor treatment or trying to keep the peace. I was standing up for myself in a way that could not be ignored or dismissed. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. That night, I received another text from Jason. We will be there Saturday morning with a moving truck. Make sure you are gone. I did not reply. Let him come on Saturday. He would find an apartment, but not the one he expected. Brian and his crew arrived promptly at 7:30 in the morning on Thursday, their trucks pulling into the visitor parking spaces below my building. I had taken Thursday and Friday off work to oversee the process, wanting to ensure everything went according to plan. Brian greeted me with a firm handshake and introduced his team, all of whom looked capable and professional. We will start with the kitchen, Brian explained, as they brought in tools and protective materials. It is usually the most complex part of any removal job. I watched as they laid protective coverings over the areas they would be walking through, then began the meticulous process of disconnecting and removing the kitchen appliances. The stainless steel refrigerator was carefully unplugged, defrosted, and moved onto a dolly. The gas range was next, with one worker ensuring the gas line was properly capped off for safety. The dishwasher required some careful maneuvering to disconnect from the plumbing without causing leaks. As each appliance was removed, it was wrapped in protective blankets and taken down to a waiting truck where it would be transported to my storage unit. The kitchen began to look increasingly bare, reminding me of how it had appeared when I first bought the apartment. Next came the more complex task of removing the quartz countertops. These had to be carefully detached from the cabinets, a process that required precision to avoid damage. The custom cabinets followed, unscrewed from the walls and removed one by one. By noon, what had once been a showcase kitchen with gleaming surfaces and high-end appliances was now just an empty room with basic plumbing connections protruding from the walls and floor. We are making good progress, Brian noted during their lunch break. The bathroom will be next, then we will start on the flooring. The bathroom deconstruction followed a similar pattern. The glass shower doors were carefully removed and crated for storage. The double vanity with its custom mirrors was detached from the wall, the plumbing capped off safely. The heated tile flooring was more challenging to remove without damage, but Brian's team worked with impressive skill, preserving as much of the material as possible. By the end of the first day, the kitchen and bathroom had been returned to their original basic state. Where luxury fixtures had once stood, there were now just the standard connections for plumbing and electricity. The apartment was already looking dramatically different, stripped of the elements that had made it special. As Brian's team packed up for the day, my neighbor Susan stopped by, her eyes widening as she peered past me into the apartment. Natalie, what is happening here? Are you renovating again? Not exactly, I replied, stepping aside to let her see more clearly. I am removing the renovations I already did. Her confusion was evident. But why everything was so beautiful? I explained the situation briefly, watching as understanding, and then outrage crossed her face. They tried to give away your apartment without your permission and expected you to just leave. That is insane. Exactly. So I am taking back what is mine before they can get their hands on it. Susan shook her head in disbelief. Well, good for you for standing up to them. Let me know if you need anything, okay? Even if it is just someone to keep an eye out while the workers are here. Her support meant more than she could know. Throughout my life, I had rarely had anyone stand up for me against my family's treatment. Having neighbors like Susan in my corner reinforced that I was doing the right thing. Day 2 of the project focused on the hardwood flooring and built-in features. The team started early, carefully prying up the expensive hardwood planks I had installed throughout the apartment. This was painstaking work, as the goal was to preserve as much of the flooring as possible for potential reuse. Beneath the hardwood was the original concrete subfloor, gray and utilitarian. The built-in bookshelves in the living room were next unscrewed from the walls and disassembled for storage. The recessed lighting throughout the apartment was replaced with basic builder-grade fixtures, the kind that had been there when I first moved in. The smart home system, including the programmable thermostat video doorbell and integrated speakers, was removed and packed away. By mid-afternoon, the custom window treatments had been taken down, replaced with the simple white blinds that had come with the apartment. The interior doors I had upgraded to solid wood models were swapped back for the hollow core originals I had stored in the building's basement storage area. As the day progressed, more neighbors noticed the activity and stopped to inquire. Each time I gave a brief explanation, receiving looks of sympathy and support in return. Mr. Peterson from next door even brought me a container of homemade soup for strength, as he put it. "You show them, Natalie," he encouraged me. "Some people need to learn they cannot take advantage of good people." By 5 o'clock, Brian's team had completed the transformation. What had once been a stylishly renovated, comfortable home was now a basic apartment with builder-grade finishes, bare concrete floors, and standard white walls. It was functional, but completely stripped of personality and luxury. Brian walked through with me for a final inspection, making sure everything had been properly removed and that the apartment was still structurally sound and livable. "All the plumbing and electrical work is up to code," he assured me. "The apartment is perfectly habitable, just not as comfortable or attractive as it was before." "It is exactly what I wanted," I told him, surveying the stark space with satisfaction. "Thank you for understanding and doing such a thorough job." "I have seen family disputes before," Brian said, "but never quite like this. I hope it works out for you." After paying Brian and thanking his team, I stood alone in my transformed apartment. The echoing emptiness of the rooms reflected the hollow feeling in my chest. This had been my home, my sanctuary, the place I had poured my heart into creating. Now it was just a shell stripped of everything that had made it special. But as I looked around at the bare walls and floors, I felt a strange sense of power. For the first time in my life, I had refused to be the family doormat. I had taken control of a situation where they had tried to render me powerless. Whatever happened next, I had stood up for myself in a way they could not ignore. I spent that night in the apartment, sleeping on an air mattress in what had been my bedroom. The concrete floor was cold and hard beneath the thin mattress, but I slept surprisingly well, perhaps from the emotional exhaustion of the past few days. Tomorrow would bring the confrontation I had been preparing for. Jason and Melissa would arrive expecting to claim their gift, only to find it was not at all what they had been promised. I fell asleep wondering what their faces would look like when they saw what awaited them. Saturday morning arrived with bright sunshine streaming through the windows, no longer filtered by the custom blinds I had installed. I had been up since 6, showered in the now basic bathroom with its standard showerhead instead of the rainfall fixture. I had loved and dressed carefully in jeans and a simple blouse. This was not a day for looking vulnerable. At precisely 10 o'clock, I heard voices in the hallway outside my apartment. I recognized Jason's, immediately followed by Melissa's higher-pitched tones, and surprisingly, my parents' voices as well. They had all come for the grand takeover. The knock, when it came, was aggressive, 3 sharp raps that echoed through the nearly empty apartment. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and opened the door. 4 faces stared at me with varying degrees of surprise and annoyance. Jason spoke first. "You are still here. I told you to be out by yesterday." I smiled pleasantly. "This is my apartment. I am not going anywhere." "We have already discussed this," my father said impatiently. "Stop being difficult, and let your brother and Melissa move in." "Please come in," I said, stepping aside. "I think we need to have a conversation." They filed past me, then stopped abruptly as they took in the state of the apartment. Where they had expected to find my beautifully renovated home, they instead saw bare concrete floors, basic white walls, exposed plumbing connections, where high-end fixtures had once been, and empty spaces where built-in features had stood. What happened?" Melissa gasped, her eyes wide with shock. "Where is everything?" "What did you do?" Jason demanded, turning to me with fury on his face. "I removed my belongings," I replied calmly. Everything I paid for with my own money. You destroyed the apartment, my father shouted. I did not destroy anything. I simply took what was mine. The apartment is in exactly the condition it was when I bought it. Everything you see, or rather do not see, was paid for by me, installed by me, and therefore belongs to me. My mother looked around in disbelief. But the kitchen, the bathroom, the floors, all mine, I confirmed, purchased with $50,000 of my own savings. Did you really think I would leave them for you to give away? Melissa burst into tears. This is not what you promised us, she wailed at my parents. You said it was beautifully renovated. This is unlivable. It is perfectly livable, I corrected her. Just not luxurious. The electricity works, the water runs, the walls and roof are intact. It is a basic apartment, which is exactly what it was before I invested my money in improving it. Jason's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You did this on purpose, he accused. To spite us. I did this to protect my investment, I replied evenly. You and our parents tried to steal from me. I simply ensured you could not profit from that theft. We did not steal anything, my father protested. We were helping your brother start his married life. By giving away my property without my consent, I pointed out. That is the definition of theft, Dad. My phone chimed with a text message. I glanced at it briefly, noting it was from my lawyer confirming that the cease and desist letters had been delivered the previous day. By the way, I added, I assume you all received the legal notices from my attorney yesterday. Just to be clear, this apartment legally belongs to me. Only my name is on the deed and mortgage. You have no right to give it away, and Jason has no right to demand I move out. You got a lawyer, my mother asked, looking stunned. Of course I did. You were trying to take my home. Melissa was still crying now, sitting on the floor since there was no furniture. What are we supposed to do now? We told everyone we would be living here. The wedding is in 4 months. That is not my problem, I said firmly. You should have confirmed ownership before making plans to take someone else's property. My father pulled out his phone. I am calling your Uncle Richard. He is a real estate attorney. This cannot be legal what you have done. Feel free, I replied. He will tell you the same thing my lawyer told me. The apartment is mine. The renovations were mine. I had every right to remove what belonged to me. While my father made his call, stepping into the hallway for privacy, my mother approached me with a pleading expression. Natalie, please be reasonable. Family helps family. Your brother needs this place more than you do. I need a home too, Mom. Why is his need more important than mine? He is getting married, starting a family. And I am single, so my needs do not matter. I shook my head sadly. That has always been the problem. You and Dad always put Jason first, always made me feel less important, less worthy of consideration. That is not true, she protested weakly. Isn't it? When have you ever put my needs first? When have you ever considered my feelings before Jason's? She had no answer, which was answer enough. My father returned his expression grim. Richard says she is within her rights, he admitted reluctantly. The apartment is legally hers. And the renovations, Jason demanded. Also hers. She can remove anything that is not permanent to the structure. A heavy silence fell over the room. The reality of the situation was finally sinking in. Their plan to appropriate my home had failed completely. So what now? Melissa asked eventually, her voice small and defeated. Now you find somewhere else to live, I answered simply. This apartment is my home and I am staying. You have ruined everything, Jason exploded. Our plans, our future, everything. No, Jason. You and our parents tried to ruin my life by taking my home. I simply prevented that from happening. The confrontation continued for another hour with accusations, tears, and attempts at guilt-tripping from all sides. My father threatened to cut me out of the family. My mother begged me to reconsider. Jason called me every name he could think of. Melissa alternated between crying and making spiteful comments about my selfishness. Through it all, I remained calm and firm. This was my stand, my moment to finally break the pattern of putting everyone else's needs before my own. It was painful and ugly, but also strangely liberating. Eventually, they left Jason slamming the door so hard it rattled the walls. I stood in the empty apartment, shaking with a mixture of adrenaline and emotion, but also feeling stronger than I ever had before. In the days that followed, the fallout continued. Extended family members began calling, some to express outrage at my selfishness, others to offer support after hearing my side of the story. My mother's sister, Aunt Carol, who had always seen the dynamics in our family, clearly called to tell me she was proud of me for standing up for myself. "It is about time someone called Thomas and Diane out on their favoritism," she said firmly. "They have been doing this to you since you were a child." Jason and Melissa were forced to rent an apartment across town, far less impressive than they had planned on. According to family gossip, Melissa's parents were disappointed by the downgrade in living arrangements and had made their feelings known to my parents. The social embarrassment of having to explain why their gift had fallen through seemed to hit my parents harder than anything else. They had announced the apartment as a grand gesture in front of all their friends and Melissa's family, only to have to backtrack awkwardly when questioned about it later. For several weeks, I maintained minimal contact with my immediate family, responding to messages but declining invitations to family gatherings. I needed space to process everything that had happened and to adjust to my new reality, a basic apartment that would need to be renovated again and a family relationship fundamentally altered by conflict. But despite the challenges ahead, I felt a sense of peace I had never experienced before. For once in my life, I had refused to be sacrificed on the altar of Jason's wants. I had stood my ground, protected what was mine, and demanded the respect I deserved. Whatever came next, I would face it knowing I had that strength within me. 6 months have passed since that confrontation in my stripped-down apartment. So much has changed in that time, both in my physical surroundings and in my emotional landscape. The journey has been difficult, but ultimately healing in ways I never expected. After 2 months of living with concrete floors and basic fixtures, I made a decision. It was time to move on, literally and figuratively. I put my apartment on the market, selling it in its basic state at a fair price to a young couple excited about the opportunity to customize it to their taste. The sale went through quickly, and I found myself looking for a new place to call home. My search led me to a townhouse in a quieter neighborhood slightly further from downtown, but with more space and a small backyard. It cost more than my apartment had, but with the money from the sale and what I had saved from not reinstalling all the renovations in my old place, I could afford the down payment. This new beginning felt right, a clean slate untainted by family drama. The process of healing emotionally has been more complex than finding new housing. In the immediate aftermath of the confrontation, I experienced a roller coaster of emotions, vindication and pride mixed with grief and doubt. Had I gone too far? Should I have handled things differently? These questions haunted me during sleepless nights. About a month after the incident, I received a surprising text from my mother. "Can we talk?" We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our homes. She looked older somehow, the lines around her eyes deeper than I remembered. "I owe you an apology," she said after we had settled with our drinks. "What we did was wrong. We had no right to try to take your home." Her words stunned me. In 32 years, I could not recall my mother ever apologizing to me for anything substantial. "Why did you do it?" I asked, the question that had been burning inside me for months. She sighed deeply. "It is complicated. Your father, he has always had a blind spot when it comes to Jason, and I have enabled it. I see that now. When Jason and Melissa were talking about where they would live after the wedding and how expensive everything is these days, your father got this idea that your apartment would be perfect for them. He convinced himself and then me that you would be fine with it, that you would want to help your brother." "But you never even asked me," I pointed out. "You just announced it publicly, trying to force my hand." I know, she admitted, looking down at her coffee. "That was cowardly. I think deep down I knew you would say no, and I did not want to face that conflict. Our conversation lasted nearly 2 hours, digging into patterns of behavior that stretched back to my childhood. She did not justify or excuse everything, but she did provide context I had never understood before. My father had always wanted a son to carry on the family name and traditions. When Jason was born after me, his preference became obvious and unchecked. It does not make it right, she acknowledged. But that is how it started. And then it just became the pattern, the way things were in our family. While that conversation did not instantly heal our relationship, it opened a door that had long been closed. We began meeting regularly, sometimes just the two of us, sometimes with a family therapist I had started seeing to help process everything. My father has been slower to come around. His pride was deeply wounded by my refusal to go along with his plan, and even more by the public embarrassment that followed. We have spoken only a few times in the past 6 months, brief stilted conversations at family gatherings. I eventually began attending again, but recently I noticed a shift in his demeanor, less defensive, more thoughtful. Time will tell if this represents genuine change. Jason has not apologized. I did not expect him to. A lifetime of preferential treatment has convinced him of his entitlement to whatever he wants. He and Melissa were married 3 months ago in a ceremony I was invited to but chose not to attend. According to my mother, they are renting a condo now and seem happy enough. The most significant change has been within myself. Through therapy and a support group for people with similar family dynamics, I have learned to set and maintain boundaries. I no longer feel obligated to sacrifice my needs for family harmony. I have stopped apologizing for taking up space in the world, for having needs and wants that matter just as much as anyone else's. My circle of friends has become my chosen family. Ashley, who stood by me through the worst of this ordeal, has introduced me to her wider social group, people who value me for who I am, rather than what I can do for them. We have dinner together weekly, celebrate holidays as a chosen family, and support each other through life's challenges. My career has flourished as well. The confidence I gained from standing up for myself translated into more assertiveness at work. I received a promotion 4 months ago, with a significant salary increase that helped make my new home possible. Sometimes I still marvel at how a painful crisis became the catalyst for so much positive change in my life. By refusing to be the family doormat any longer, I created space for authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation and guilt. The most profound lesson I have learned is that true family, whether biological or chosen, supports your growth and respects your boundaries. Love does not demand sacrifice at every turn. Real love wants to see you thrive, not just survive. My new townhouse is nearly finished being decorated now. I took my time selecting each element thoughtfully, creating a space that reflects who I am now, not who I was trying to be for others. The kitchen has beautiful maple cabinets and slate countertops. The floors are bamboo, warm and sustainable. Every corner feels authentically mine. In a way, my old apartment never quite did lovely as it was. Standing up for yourself does not mean burning all bridges or hardening your heart. It means having the courage to say, "This is not acceptable to me," and the wisdom to know that those who truly love you will respect that boundary even if it takes them time to adjust. If you have ever found yourself constantly sacrificing your needs for others, ask yourself, what would change if I started treating my own well-being as a priority? The answer might surprise you as it did me. The sky does not fall. The world does not end. And those who truly matter will remain in your life, perhaps in a healthier way than before. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family who took you for granted? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Do not forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories about family dynamics and personal growth, and share with anyone who might need to hear that it is okay to protect what is yours. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to say no when necessary.